532,000. This year we're at about 530,000. Obviously my budget is not a big one, so we will just I'll just go over basically what the costs are and things like purchase of service, pays for outside counsel, arbitration costs, depositions, mediation. Also, if we have to have any titles done that we cannot handle in-house, generally we do handle most of them in-house, but if they become a little bit overly burdensome, we do hire a title counsel. Intergovernmental, registry of deeds, closing costs, recording costs. Our general expenses cover the subscriptions, Massachusetts Continuing Legal Education, Lawyers Weekly. Also covers the BBO renewals. You'll see on the salary side, we have 3 full-time attorneys, 1 part-time attorney. We have 2 clericals. You'll also see a stipend in there. The stipend, it's 2 parts. We have for the records access officer is $3,500 and $2,500 mandated by statute for fire prevention so that the fire department can write tickets. So far this year, we've done over 460 records out of the office. So I think that's a pretty good deal. So again, the budget is pretty slim on a lot of department sides. So if there's specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any counselors have questions?
Just, Mr. Chairman,
Counselor Sullivan.
is there any money or any look down at potential settlements that are coming down the road that are included in the budget?
There's no specific settlements that are included in this year's budget. There's nothing on the table at the moment that we're looking at. If there is anything, you'll see my the judgments account is at about 20,000. That's not for anything specific. It's just a round number of what we've averaged over the years. There are things that we can cover. Obviously, if it's a big settlement, it's something that we're going to have to come to you all for. Those are mainly for pothole claims, tree claims, those types of things that cover for the year. Anything that's substantial, we usually end up either working with the department, like let's say if there's you know, a sewer backup or something along those lines. Usually we'll have the water department transfer funds to the law department to pay for a claim. But no, there's nothing specific that the 20,000 is for. That's just for the year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your purchase of service account was in 2020, 130,000, went down to 49,000 last year, is up to 95,000 this year for next year. Is that going to be sufficient?
Every year you really never know when you're going to get sued. So it's kind of, I actually had Robin pull the past few years. Going back, 2011 was about $30,000, 2012 was 180. So you really can't tell. It depends on, again, the amount of lawsuits and what types of settlements are going to be out there. And well, for the purchase of service, you know, depends on what we can handle in-house and what we cannot. So it runs the gamut. Like last year, like you said, it was $135,000 in 2020 and 49 in 2021. 21 was also, you know, with COVID, the courts being shut down, we really were able to handle most everything in-house. We hired attorney, the labor counsel, we hired him and to be able to do, he's the assistant city solicitor as well. So instead of just strictly labor counsel, he's an assistant city solicitor with a labor specialty. So he's been able to handle some of the cases that we wouldn't have been able to push on strictly a labor counsel. I've had him handle license to carry issues and things of that nature. And Attorney Garber as well, he's our part-time attorney, and we've been able to throw some more things at him this year just because his private practice was also quite slow. So he's taken on a few more things for us in fiscal 21. So, but now with the courts opening back up and things starting to pick back up again, we just wanted to pad that a little bit just in case we do have to hire out some more. But we did not, you know, the started off last year, I don't know if you all recall, our purchase service was actually $14,000 going into the budget cycle. We transferred some money out of salary accounts last year in order to pay for some outside counsel costs in the beginning of summer. So that's why it was up to 49. We transferred 35 from salary to that. And we didn't do any other transfers into purchase of service last year.
Thank you. Any Counselor Bean, then Counselor Flaherty.
Hi, Shanna. Thanks for coming in tonight.
Sure.
I only just have a quick question, and it's more around just personnel and, heads in the office kind of thing. Obviously, you're inundated, and, there's really, I don't think enough people in the office actually to do the work that's being thrusted upon you, and it's department heads going directly to you. And you and I have had these discussions through the year, and then there's freedom of information requests, and then there's outside counsel that we're hiring for certain things. I mean, what's the tipping point here when we really should be hiring more people for the office comparatively to outsourcing, more and more as we go forward, outside of the bigger cases that we have to deal with?
Historically, I mean, years ago, probably before I started, you'll know that the office probably only had maybe 2 attorneys. And, the office has been built up to be more of a proactive approach than it has been a reactive approach. And I think that's worked well. Lawsuit numbers have gone down, and you're right, outside, we used to use outside counsel a lot. And that was an analysis that we put before you in order to be able to hire more people, back a couple of years ago. So yes, it is cost effective to have in-house counsel as opposed to hiring everybody. That is not my call.
Fair enough.
Counselor Flaherty.
Yep, thank you. And I'm going along that same line. Are you right now the city solicitor?
The first assistant city solicitor underneath the ordinances takes over in the absence of a city solicitor. I don't know how many of you were here when we had Peter Martin. He was first assistant city solicitor, because the city solicitor's position is coterminous with the mayor, and that is only a 2-year term. So that is a little bit nerve-wracking for somebody to take on, I believe. So that, Peter Martin was always the first assistant city solicitor, ran the department. Attorney Phillips, the same. She was first assistant for quite some time. She did not become the city solicitor until I think 2013 or 14. It's not a position that's often filled in our type government structure. So it is somewhat relatively normal to have first assistant run the office, but that is my title. I'm the first assistant. I'm not acting, but under our ordinances, I have full power to, sign everything and do everything I need to do under the city ordinances.
When we had a city solicitor, didn't we have 4 lawyers?
Yes,
And now we don't, right?
correct.
So when we're comparing the budget to previous years we had 4 lawyers and say one that equally as talented and experienced as you were, more, not a new person. And we had 4 bodies in there that were capable of doing a lot of things, and now we don't. So I'm a little concerned about that. I'm also concerned, from a city council perspective, that sometimes city council doesn't seem to have an independent lawyer that can give us advice from the city council's perspective. And I know that, for some people, they don't believe we need that. But I think if we're the client, we should get advice from our perspective to answer our questions, not necessarily to get questions that follow what the mayor desires. And it hasn't happened much this year, but I think we're wary of that. And I've talked to other city councils in different cities, and many of them have their own lawyer assigned to them that's either apportioned through the city law department or contracted out, where they can call up and get advice on various issues and get things addressed from the council perspective. Because sometimes the council wants to do things that the mayor really doesn't want to do, right? And we have a right to do that. We're an equal branch of government, and in Westfield's case, we're a stronger branch of government. And I think that's an important thing to look at in the future. I don't think we could do it now with this budget. And I'm a little disappointed that we're not filling the city solicitor position, or trying to at least fill that role with a permanent person. So,
Frankly, sorry to interrupt, but
No
that is
problem.
the question that every municipal attorney asks themselves whenever you start a matter is, who is my client? We represent the entire city.
right.
Can get difficult when there's a battle between one department or another, but we do our very best to represent the city as our client. It is always what's in the best interest of the city of Westfield. And so, again, we do our best to answer the questions of each board, commission, department head, mayor, whatever the question comes from.
Right,
So
but
there
in
are,
that
there are communities that have a council to the council, you're right. Chicopee
Yep.
specifically has a city,
Yep.
council to the city council. That's just never been done in Westfield.
Right. But in order to do what you think is best for the city, you have to have some preconceived notions about what you believe is best for the city, which may be in conflict with what the city council wants to do in their role as the policymaking body of the city. And that is where the conflict comes in sometimes. So I don't want to battle, discuss it all here, but I would love to see the city solicitor position filled. And I would love to find a way to have the council either have a person earmarked whose sole job, for maybe a third of his time or her time is city council, and then the city council being the customer, not the city of Westfield, or have some of the block of time that's being outsourced to a place where the city council could call up and get an opinion from, an unbiased person who represents the city council. But I would fully support you getting a city solicitor or another body. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from any councilors? Councilor Morganelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And hi, Shanna. Thanks for being here. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
Hope you and the family are well. I just had a question about the two sections with the percent change, the minus 18.71% change for full-time salaries, and then the positive 6.92% change for full-time hourly. Can you just explain those two for me?
Full-time hourly, there was an increase, the 2% cost of living increase for the hourly employees. And we also had one of our clerical leave and hired a different one, negotiated a different contract. For the full-time salary, last year lost Attorney Phillips. So that's part of the reason why it went down.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nick. Any other questions from the council?
Seeing no questions or cuts, Mr. Chair, I would move approval of the law department budget as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded for approval of the budget as presented. Roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes, and I'm using the space bar, by the way, so.
Beltrandi,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Figgy,
Yes.
Flaherty,
No.
Harris,
Yes.
Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Mello,
Yes.
Morganelli,
No.
Oniski.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Attorney Reed. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to meet with us this evening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Next on the agenda is the Assessors Department. That is item 1141 in the budget. Robin, I see two screens. I don't see everybody, but Robin, are you here? Okay. We can give her,
Motion to take treasurer collector out of order if he's here.
Second.
roll call, Madam City Clerk, to go out of order.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Alley, he's not there, sorry. Bean,
Yes.
Beltrandi,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Figgy,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Mello,
Yes.
Morganelli,
Yes.
Oniski.
Yes, but we didn't check if he was here, did we?
I'm looking at these screens. I don't know if I see him.
It's hard to go back and forth between the two screens. And I don't know if he's got a phone number or he's got
Peter, is there any way they can't get in because it's full? Unusual, but you got 2 full screens.
They can always phone in.
I just texted him.
You're faster than I am. I was gonna do the same thing.
Is there anybody on, Ralph, who's doing tonight?
Yeah, the school department's the last, and they're all here.
Oh. I realize they're probably going to be the longest.
That might give the other two time to get in if we went to the school department. If there's no objections, we already are out of order, so we could go to the school department.
I got no objection.
Okay. Superintendent Zaporowski, are you on?
I am.
The floor is yours. Give us a overview of your proposed budget, please.
Sure. So our budget proposal for this year, here's my slide, is for
Shouldn't have leaned back in his chair.
Excuse me.
Mr. President, Matt's going to be here in 10 minutes, so he'll wait till after school.
Thank you.
After the report
Thank you,
that is.
Counselor. I appreciate that. Superintendent, are you ready?
Counselor Figgy, is the super talking? Because if so, I can't hear a thing.
I'm hearing nothing either, Counselor.
Thank you.
Superintendent Zaporowski, are you muted? No, doesn't. Okay,
Sure looks like it.
all right. Technology is a wonderful thing.
All right.
We're-
Can you hear me now? This is what happens when I try to put the video on. I freeze. So I'm sorry. So you have to look at my picture. I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we got
Yes.
you loud and clear.
Okay, let's try that again. Thank you all for having us here tonight. That's the first thing I wanted to say. So our budget increase this year, our budget proposal is $64,396,647. We had a public hearing where we presented this budget, and we had several school committee meetings afterwards where it was debated. And this is the number that was passed. You'll see it's an increase of about $2.35 million from last year, which is coincidentally about the amount that we were cut last year. And so one of the, while the increase percentage looks high, it really isn't as high as it would appear, because last year we had CARES Act funding in the amount of $1.142 million. And the other difference would be contractual raises. So that is the vast majority of the budget increase that we have. We are here, Shannon is here to answer any questions that the council may have, and we're happy to do so. And I assume you can all still hear me.
Yep, you're still uninterrupted.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that previously. That was frustrating.
It happens, not to worry. Questions from the council? Counselor Adams.
Yeah, thank you, Superintendent. Question, do we have two questions, I guess. Do we have any monies that will be returning at the end of this month, I guess, back to the city? And was there any savings, especially for busing, I guess is my big question. Was there any savings with the COVID? I would assume there would have been savings because the kids weren't in school for a while. So those are the two questions I have.
So I'm uncertain as to how much will be returned. One of the things we are trying to do is fix the pool at Westfield High School ourselves. So any funding that would be left over at the end of the year, we were hoping to put towards the pool, which is coming in at a pretty high price. So that the first question. And so to answer, there were savings for transportation on some days. For example, there were 3 weeks after or on the holidays where we were fully remote. So we did save some money at that point. And that is what is creating some of our extra money at the end of the year this year, that in addition to positions that we were unable to fill.
And I can
Still
jump in
have-
here too. So we were saving some on our regular transportation at the beginning of the year when all the buses weren't running, but our out of district transportation costs did increase significantly. Per route, we are charged almost double per route for our out of district special education transportation.
Just to follow up, so how does our contract, I don't want to get too far off base here. What does our contract say with the buses? I mean, everybody has asked me that. If the buses aren't running, are we paying them, or do we have to pay them even if they're not running?
So we do have to pay a percentage, and the contract is 55%. And this is because Lukrensky would have to continue to pay the insurance. They'd have to pay for the buses because their vehicles are leased. And on the advice of Commissioner Riley of Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, it was in school district's best interest to do that because we needed them to be available on a dime. I mean, we could start school Monday and they had to have the drivers, they had to have the buses ready for us to go. Shannon, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Sure. And in terms of our out of district contract, so this year was the beginning of a new contract. So if the buses weren't running, we were basically charged what a regular route would have been pre-COVID. And we were charged basically double on routes where we couldn't either share with another district, which was basically all of them. It was a double cost, really.
Thank you.
And we will go back next year to our regular rates, barring that districts will be sharing buses with us again.
And Councilor Adams, that was because of COVID. We couldn't mix different cohorts of kids, so they were running additional vehicles, vans, or whatever they were using.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Counselor Flaherty?
Yes, thank you. All right, a couple of questions. So again, I'll offer to make a motion to, after this meeting, to create a stabilization account that will allow you to put your savings from this year into a stabilization account that you can draw on next year. And that will actually help the rest of the city budget. I'll ask a few questions and I'll give some commentary. So we have this building, Angela Holmes building. Are you guys doing anything with that? And if not, how do we get rid of it and turn it into some money?
I don't know that my last conversation is that it is structurally unsound. So I actually have asked Shannon to, when we're looking to tear down the homes on Franklin Street for the new school, we are looking to see what it would cost in addition to tear that home down. If it's not structurally sound, we can't sell it to anyone. I wouldn't recommend anyone go in there, never mind use it for an educational setting. That's why I pulled us out of there a few years ago. And also I don't know that it would be, I mean, it's unusable. And we had at one point had hoped to even use it for storage, but that didn't really, after talking with Brian Ferret, that's not going to work.
So we could knock it down and then sell the lot on the open market. Is that how you would do it?
We could. I'm not sure that anyone would want to buy it, but I'm certainly open-minded just because of where it's located between the post office and the school, although it could be good for a business, I suppose.
Yep. And how about St. Casimir's?
So that's what we were going to do, is sell St. Casimir's and move the storage that we have there that we still need to keep to the White House, or the Angie Holmes house. So now that we can't do that, we're back at the drawing board as to what we're going to do with that materials. We've tossed around possibly trying to make everything electronic, which would be a very high cost. But if we have there are things at the church that we have to have. We have to keep them. There are records for up to 99 years in some cases. We need a place to store those. Again, I was going to use the Angie Home Center, so we're still working that out. But we do, at one point, I think there is an interested buyer at St. Casimir's as well. So we just need to come up with a plan And again, the White House was our plan, and that got shot down a few weeks ago.
Thank you. And you talked about a virtual academy, and the meeting I watched, there wasn't a whole lot of details on it. Can you tell me how that impacts this budget, where the money is coming from, how many kids you plan on having enrolled, what age groups, and how you think Westfield Public Schools can compete in the virtual academy market and be best, better than or equal to other alternatives out there?
So the one thing that's unique about this is that the state is allowing districts to do this, but at this time it is only for Westfield Public School students. So our strategy has been to try to or to reach out to those families that went to either homeschool or to a different virtual school, because there are only 2 in the state that can enroll anybody, and that would be in Greenfield and I think Tech and Cambridge. So we think that we know that there are some families who thrived, some students who thrived, did very well in the remote learning environment. And we didn't want to lose those students to those virtual schools because we believe it's important to keep Westfield students in Westfield. So right now it would be K-8. ESSER, the funding that is coming, there isn't a lot that we can do with that money in terms of balancing the budget. For example, we have the same limitations as the city has with this funding, but we can fund it through the ESSER grant. And the hope would be, of course, that it becomes self-sustaining over time. Our more detailed plan has been posted on our website if anyone wants to look at that. I'm happy to answer any specific questions. Susan Dargy is on the line with us as well. But we are hoping to serve as many as 200, but we think 100 would be a good place to start. And I think you have to build a program up. So we have already submitted our letter of intent to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. They have given us their feedback. We have to respond to them in the next few weeks. And then we will start looking forward to this process. One of the things I am excited about is that quite a few of the applicants are students that had left the Westfield Public Schools and are now looking to come back.
So if we have 100 kids K-8, that's roughly, 10, 11 kids per class for a full-time teacher. And then you need principals and a nurse and you don't call them social worker, adjustment people.
School adjustment counselors.
School adjustment counselors. So it seems like the cost per student for this is going to be quite a bit higher than the regular school, and the classroom size would be a lot smaller. So would a person who's sending their kid to, say, the North Middle School or the middle school be better off going the home route?
So that actually would be that would be an erroneous assumption, counselor, because we might have split classrooms. We're not going to run classes of 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 or 11 unless there are no other options. I mean, we have mixed classrooms now. I certainly don't want to use, because it is grant money, it doesn't mean that we become irresponsible with that funding. It's going to be pretty much, it's a Westfield Public School. It's like opening another school in our district. And so will there be variances in class sizes? Absolutely, we have that now, depending on the neighborhoods. But in this particular situation, we haven't, until we see our final numbers of enrollment, we haven't decided, is it a full-time nurse or a half-time nurse? Is it a full-time principal or a principal that stipends something? So those are decisions that still need to be made. But the important part is that it's being funded by the ESSER grant. It's not coming, it would have no effect on our LEA budget at all.
What happens if it's not sustainable?
So we have ESSER for 3 years, and I think there are a couple of things that could happen as COVID goes away, because we also know some of the people that applied are still afraid of COVID. I mean, that is a reality that we live in. And maybe 3 years from now, there will be no more COVID. That'd be nice. And if the school dissolves after 3 years, then that's okay. But I think it's important as a city, as a school district, that we try to do our best to meet the needs of every student in Westfield. And if they want to learn remotely, then we need to provide that option, because if we don't, they're going to go someplace else. We also hope down the road that the state will open up this to school choice. Now that would be pretty great, in that we would be able to take students from other districts that would be able to attend the virtual school. But again, right now, that is not something that they have opened up yet. And there are only 13 districts in this across the state that have actually moved forward with this process. I'm not sure how many of those 13 will actually have a school in the end, but it has been, to be truthful, kind of exciting and interesting to put a school together, if you will, on totally outside of our norm and our box, but also trying to capitalize on the positive experiences that our students and families had as a result of the pandemic. I mean, no one planned for it. There was no playbook, but we learned that some of our families and students absolutely thrived. We're still going to offer extracurricular activities as well. And I think it's going to be a good thing for those students that need it.
Okay. And during that conversation, I heard that you talk about putting people at the Boys and Girls Club, or maybe having some of these younger kids, because I would expect that, say, the K to 5 grade would have to have a parent at home with them. They're not going to leave those little kids at home alone. And I know during the COVID, a bunch of those kids went over to Boys and Girls Club and they were supervised over there and then linked into the schools. Are you still planning on renting from Boys and Girls Club? And I heard for classrooms and potentially for teachers. And if you are going to do that with Boys and Girls Club, why couldn't you do it with other nonprofits that may want to bid on the same kind of activity?
So we actually are probably going to, the Boys and Girls Club was an option, but we are actually going to be preparing an RFP so that other places will have the opportunity to bid if that's the route that we're going. There are still a lot of moving parts. We've talked about the old town hall as well as a possibility. So there are a lot of moving parts, and with an RFP, we'll have to see who responds. What we do know is that we know that the students, they're going to need a place to call home. That, in other words, the virtual world is not, you know, there are times when they're going to have to come into a place, into a building, whether we're doing team building, that's sometimes things, will need to be in person. Screenings from the nurse, those kinds of things. There are things we're going to need to have a place for that to occur. And I also think, again, this is a work in progress. It hasn't been done before by a single school district. So we're really going to be learning along the way. And I look forward to that. And I think that's a good thing. And changing to meet the needs of what the program is.
Okay. A question about your numbers. You mentioned enrollment. Enrollment's been declining for many, many years. It's not, this current year you showed 4731. What are you looking at for, or 4931? What are you looking at for 22 enrollment total?
So Shannon, I don't remember, 4980, I think the number was.
4980 is our foundation enrollment for this year.
An increase?
Right, and we actually expect that to go up, Counselor, because like many districts across the state and really across the country, what a lot of districts saw is a decrease in enrollment for kindergarten, a decrease in enrollment for preschool because of COVID. And we saw a lot of families move to a virtual school before because, we've had families that never wanted to do the hybrid, for example. So without that piece, they went and did they went to do a virtual school at Greenfield or Tech-Up. In a lot of cases, we also saw an increase in homeschooling families. And so we've already started to see some of those students come back. So that 4980 number is already inaccurate. And we expect more to happen. And I really, to be honest with you, I see a big push coming in August. That's what we get every year. And I had a conversation with Accentria last week, and they're expecting a large influx of English learning students as well in the next year and a half under the new guidelines. It's going to double what it's been. So we're going to be seeing an increase in EL students as well, particularly from Ukraine.
Okay. And on the budget side, I don't like seeing a big number like that. I know it's common for you guys, but it really is, a significant part of the increase in cost for the city. And that causes us to have to raise taxes and borrow money from our savings accounts and cut other programs in the city. After the school committee refused to take the mayor's number in the budget, he went back and took more money out of other places in the city. And that is concerning to me and all those other departments who are taking a hit in order to do this. My numbers show that you intend on hiring 30 new employees. If I did the numbers right, 843 next year versus 813 this year. And the salaries show you're going from 47.6 million to 52.4 million. That's about, a 6.1% cost in dollars per full-time employee. So you're not only hiring 30 new people, but the cost of each of those employees is going up about 6%.
So how many of those are, I believe the majority of those new positions are on the grant, however?
It's still in the budget is what it shows. It shows your average dollars for full-time employee last year was 58.6, and the average full-time employee this year is 62.2. The average cost per student was 96.68, and it's going to be over 10,000 this coming year. It's just concerning that the school keeps getting more and more of the budget than other places.
With all due respect, Counselor, we were cut $2.5 million last year. So
yep.
I don't know that that is a fair statement. We're not even asking for that $2.5 million back. And I think that the CARES Act grant, which was able to be used last year to offset the budget, the ESSER money is not, as we know, able to use to offset the budget. So it put us in a particular predicament. And we also obviously have to fund contractual increases. So the actual number of new positions on the LEA budget is very small. The majority of the new positions that you talked about are on the ESSER grant, and many of those positions are additional school adjustment counselors, which we need at a time when our kids are suffering from mental health more than ever because of COVID. I have some staggering statistics that I could share with you about the mental health status of our students, but it's really quite frightening. And the amount of substance abuse increases, the amount of, this is not the time to be bailing out on our kids.
Oh, and I'm not saying that at all. And I hear that from students and parents as well. Last year was hell for everybody. I don't think anybody thinks that the quality of education was where it should be, and the kids didn't have the experience that they would have normally had. And many of them face very, very severe struggles in many ways, including, like you say, drug abuse and emotional damage and things. The budget is going up by that amount of money. And if you look at what the Chapter 70 is going up, you're asking for 2.35 million, and the state is supposed to fund more than 50% of our school budget. And they're only giving you an extra 149,000 over what they gave last year. The balance of that money, the 2.2 million, is falling on the taxpayers and all the other budgets in the city. And though the school is very, very important, so are fire and police, and so are taking care of the teachers and firemen and police when they retire. I don't think any of your employees would sign away their health benefits when they retire, or any of them would want to say, you know what, I'm willing to risk the pension. I really don't think they would do that. And we're trying to get the city in financial shape to take care of them. And I just think the school should do a little bit more.
Well, Councilor Flaherty, we did get rid of severance, and I think we're the only department in the city that's done that. So I think that was a good move in the right direction. It
wasn't a free give. That's for sure. That contract was a 6% increase, and there was a give in another area. So I'm just looking at the total dollars of what it costs you. And for example, we owe employees $350 million in healthcare, and over 200 million of that money is what we owe to school teachers and school employees. And we have to find a way to pay that. Otherwise, they're not getting what they deserve. And I think that's an important thing for us to figure out. In this case, I'm going to be asking for a cut later on for about $300,000, and intentionally to hopefully fund some of the projects that the mayor cut out of the budget in order to give you this budget after he asked for you to cut $1 million. So I'm going to ask for 300, and I would like that money to go back into the flood control, which lost their thing. Having flood control protects billions of dollars in property in town, including school buildings, particularly one that's going to be built right next to a levee. I think the flood control should be given an admin. If the schools can hire 30 more people, there's no reason we can't find a way to hire a person for the flood control. Flood control is being managed by a chairman who makes $900 a year. And he's doing an extraordinary amount of work, and he doesn't have a person in the city to do some work for him. So I'm going to ask for that. I'm going to also ask to refund the master plan, which has been delayed and delayed and delayed. It was finally promised. It was in the budget, and it was cut after the school committee refused to help out. So I'm going to be asking for all of those things to get funded by making a $300,000 cut to the school committee later on. Thank you very much. And I truly do appreciate what you do for the kids. I know everybody works really hard, and I know you did amazing things in trying times. But I'm looking at the big picture for the entire city. Thank you.
Any other counselors have any questions of the school department?
No, but I think there's a motion, so I won't make my motion to accept.
What's the motion?
Well, I think Counselor Flaherty is going to make one.
Well, I was going to wait for other people to ask questions. You know, there's 13 of us here.
That's why
Okay.
otherwise I'm going to move approval. So
All right.
giving you the
Motion-
courtesy of making the motion.
All right, thank you very much. I was just waiting for others to talk. All right, motion to cut $300,000 from the school committee budget.
Is there a second? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion on a $300,000 cut to the proposed school department budget? Seeing none, roll call, Madam City Clerk, please.
Sullivan,
No.
Adams,
Yes.
Bean,
No.
Beltrandy.
No.
Burns,
No.
Figgy,
No.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Harris,
No.
Matthews Kane,
No.
Mello,
Yes.
Morganelli,
Yes.
Oniski.
No.
Motion fails. Counselor Flaherty.
Motion to table until after we have a chance to see the rest of the city budgets, after we hear recommendations from the finance committee of the city council, after we have the ability to negotiate with the mayor, and after we have the ability to hear from more of this public. Thank you.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Not on a table.
You're correct. I stand corrected. Roll call.
Sullivan,
No.
Adams,
Yes.
Bean,
No.
Beltrandy.
No.
Burns,
No.
Figgy,
No.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Harris,
No.
Matthews Kane,
No.
Mello,
Yes.
Morganelli,
Absolutely, yes.
Oniski.
No.
Motion fails. Do I hear another motion?
With that, Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of the school department budget as presented.
Second.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Counselor Morganelli.
I have to say, after that last vote, I'm very disappointed. I understand the school department has done an incredible job with all the numbers and putting out the budget. And it wasn't too much to ask for the taxpayers because this is a huge chunk of the city budget. It wasn't much to ask to just allow a little extra time. And we're not even doing that. And Councilor Flaherty offered just a very small, and it wasn't a cut. I say this every year, every time we do the budget. It's not a cut, it's a reduction of the increase. It's not that it was level funded and the same as it was last year, and now we're cutting it even further. It increased, and we're reducing that by a tiny bit. So I'm just, I don't know what else to say. For the taxpayers, I guess I'm speaking for them, that I'm just in disbelief. Thank you.
Counselors Matthew Kane and Counselor Flaherty.
Thank you, Chairman Pro Tem. As a parent, I've seen firsthand how difficult this pandemic was on our children. I've talked to other parents who described the same struggles. And this is not just a Westfield issue. A new poll conducted by the Massing polling group this late spring found that 55% of K through 12 parents in Massachusetts say their child needs to catch up academically. The academic disruptions our children face means they need more personalized instruction and additional learning opportunities, not less. This is not the year to trim the school department's budget. Thank you.
Counselor Flaherty.
Yep, thank you. And I agree in many ways. I think the kids deserve a lot. But I think we have to find ways of improving education in a financially prudent manner. Doing the same thing over and over again and paying 3% more for it isn't the solution. I think we need to be changed. I like the idea of the virtual academy. I just don't think it's going to be financially stable. enough for us to do long-term. And I don't think we could ever compete with the giant education companies that have very, very good online things. So I'm worried about that. I picked 300,000 for a pretty good reason, because I saw what happened after the school committee refused to take the cut that the mayor offered. And the mayor, by the way, he was overly generous, right? The previous mayor would have just made the cut, you know, and last year he made the cut. He has the right to do that as mayor. He let it fly in order to support the school committee. But in his mind, originally, he knew what he was doing when he made the cut. And he had told several of our, you know, the counselors what the goals were with regard to tax increases and using, you know, free cash for things. Again, I'm going to offer, not at this meeting because we can't do it right now, but to use a stabilization account. I know you're going to have money left over this year. We looked at the year-to-date numbers, you know, the other day. You haven't spent all your money. And I don't know how you're going to spend $1 million on a pool in a short amount of time. So you're likely to have several $100,000 left over this year that we could put in a savings account that you could draw on next year that would allow us to take that money in next year's budget and use it for the things that I highlighted. There's absolutely no reason we can't do that. And as far as giving notice, I know Councilor Figge told me that it's important for you to get a yes or a no kind of quickly because you have to give notice to certain people. But in reality, you're hiring 30 new people. So you have wiggle room in your budget to get through that notice period, to get the stabilization account set up and to handle things. So I'm a little disappointed. And I'm really not happy for the taxpayers. You know, they don't want to see this kind of spending. They want to see priorities addressed. And I know education is one of the priorities, but we have to work better and we have to find a way to represent the taxpayers and all of your employees and all of the city employees. Thank you.
So, and I would say that we haven't been doing the same things over and over again. In fact, we have a lot of going on in the Westfield Public Schools. So to suggest that we're just doing the same thing over and over again isn't really fair. It's just not fair.
Chair Pro Tem Cindy Harris.
Councilor Harris.
Thank you very much. I also speak for thousands of taxpayers, and they have children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren in the school system, and the mental health issues are immeasurable that have happened this year. And if we have to spend this money in order to prevent one death or one child who has suffered during this past year and save their parents, their grandparents, and their great-grandparents from the horrible situations that have existed, I think that all our taxpayers would support this.
Thank you, Councilor Harris. And I also wanted to just respond to one more thing that Councilor Flaherty had said about the hiring of the new people. Since most of them are being hired on the grant, it doesn't affect LEA. So a cut to our budget doesn't cut the grant, it actually cuts our budget. So we have to lay off LEA employees, not prospective school adjustment counselors that we're hiring to help our kids.
Councilor Bean.
Thank you, Councilor Pro Temp. I'll just, mine's a little off topic. The only thing, since I have the superintendent here and others, obviously one of the larger items coming down the road and, you know, is the new high school. All I would ask moving forward is that if we could somehow get together and really put some political pressure on Boston to really move this project forward. I know you guys have been doing that. I'm not saying that no one has. It's just we need to put real pressure because we can't wait another 6, 8, 10 years plus to get this facility built. And a lot of the money that we're talking about is going into this facility. You talk about the school or the pool, and and I've been hard on some of the facilities outright in the city of Westfield. So if I offer myself and others, I'm sure that we'd love to make a trip down there and really knock on some doors and really shake the trees about getting this project started. Because I know we can't do much until that elementary school is completed. So I know a lot of counselors are shaking their heads right now. So whatever we can do to help, you gotta tap us on the shoulder and we'll be there for you. Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Bean. If I could show you my picture, I would tell you see my head being shaken. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Councilor Mello for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. I just want to thank the school department, especially for the visuals with their budget, because sometimes it's easier if I can see what you mean literally in terms of how the costs are broken down. So I really appreciate that and thank you. I would just like to say that I think that this is one of the budgets where money could be found in other places, and I would be very happy to help you do that, particularly with some of the special needs funding, because, of course, a lot of that can be related to some contamination problems, and we can press on both state and federal sources for that. I would just like to say that I completely support the budget. I need for us to also support the flood control budget, and that is why I made the vote that I made. But I really appreciate the way that you have presented this and completely support the school department. Thank you.
Any other counselors before Counselor Adams? Then we'll go back to Counselor Flaherty.
Yeah, just a couple quick questions. And Superintendent, do you have any idea? I guess I was hoping for a little bit of a cut here because I know, just like everybody does, how much more the cost of building that school is going to be. Do you have any idea how many millions we're talking if we go to build that school in the near future? Do you have any idea at this point yet?
The elementary school or the
Yes. Elementary.
about 59 million? I know the mayor's on too. I think that's about the number. We did pick the least expensive option as a school building committee. And the MSBA is reimbursing us at this point 71+%.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I just was wondering with the high price of building, if that number has gone up. I'm sure it's gone up several $1 million. There's no question about that. So I guess, and I've heard from the public. I don't think our kids can still get an education without a pool. What's trade school doesn't have a pool. So that's, when they hear that's $1 million or $1 million plus for the pool, that's a big number. I certainly support, your counselors. I live with one every day. Matter of fact, the school has had free grief support, and I'll put it out there for my wife and the visiting nurse and hospice. For the 17 years, they've had it for free. So I'm not sure how you're going to make up for that because the kids need it. So I'm hoping these adjustment counselors will pick up on those kids because there's nobody there to do it. And it's not just a school thing. This is a country thing. If you look at it in the news every day, this isn't just the kids in the schools. This is the whole country that needs mental health. I certainly support you, trying to help. And I was just looking for a little bit of a cut here. I'm not against the schools, but there's a lot of big numbers coming. That school's millions of dollars more, that pool. And that's why I was voting no, because we're just trying to bend a little. I know it was a close vote. It was 4-3, my understanding. There were 3 no votes on that sat on the school committee also. So I know that was a close vote on the other end. So that's the only reason I'm saying no to the budget. I was just hoping we'd have a little wiggle room here.
So just to comment, first of all, I want to thank your wife for the free services for the past 17 years. I didn't realize it was that long, but thank you. And I will tell you that that's why we're adding the school adjustment counselors. But we've also this past year started a partnership with River Valley Counseling. So they are coming into our schools as well because the needs of our kids are that high. And we can't meet the needs of the kids that with the counselors that we had, which is essentially one at each elementary school and several at the larger schools. But the students' needs continuously increase. And with COVID this past year, we're seeing a significant increase. I can't put a number to it, but I know that our school adjustment counselors that we currently have are very, very busy. And this, of course, they also have to meet the needs of the students that have it on their grid for an IEP. So we believe the additional counselors will help a lot. And we're also hoping the pool comes in at lower. Once we go out for an RFP, again, that's the competitive process. So, and hopefully there are things that we can do to knock it down a few $100,000. But it is a significant part, although by some dreaded, part of the physical education program at Westfield High School. And it is also a significant extracurricular activity. And I would be, once we make the repairs, I would be open to opening it up for more opportunities throughout the city as they arise. So I'm not, I never expected the cost to be as much as it came in. I have to be honest with you. I think we all had a little sticker shock on that. But at the same time, it is used. It's used a lot.
Thank you.
Counselor Flaherty.
Yep, thank you. And I'll just start with the pool. And I also think it's a good idea, and it should have been maintained all along. I think there's great benefit to making sure all the kids know how to swim. You just saw a young man die over in Worcester the other day, and a police officer who tried to save him die. I think it's critically important that kids know how to swim before they get out of their teenage years. And the earlier they're in the pool, the better it is for them in the long run. I also agree 100% about the grief counselors, but I also think the state and social services agency should be doing a lot more. It shouldn't be the burden of the school to be the social service agency for all of these kids. We have other things in the state. And I think the state is not keeping up with their share. They're only giving you $149,000 more than last year. And they know that they need more social services help. They know that they're going to dump kids on us that have English as a second language. And they should be funding more of this. And I think our representatives and senators should be fixing this formula so that we get more money. I think we should get more money in the transportation budget to cover our cost of transportation. As far as maintenance goes, you talked about the new school. 59 million is what it is right now. And I know construction never comes in that way. It's going to be higher. I did hear about a new high school that you want to combine the vocational education with the regular high school. These new high schools are coming in, $100 to $150 million. I'd love to see more vocational education and find a way to get more students in there. I think you could fill that up and it could be a money-making thing for the city. I don't know what you do with that old building. I do know that the maintenance budgets in your total have been declining over the years. In 2018, it was $808,000. This year it's $723,000, 5 or 6 years later, when the cost of services have gone up. I'd like to make sure that we maintain the existing buildings so that we don't have to spend millions of dollars fixing roofs and pools and other things. A little maintenance goes a long way. And I think I've talked about this with 2 other superintendents too, because that line item hasn't really been growing enough to keep up with what it costs to maintain the buildings in an adequate state of repair. So I'd like to see that change in the future too, but I think I support what Councilor Adams said earlier, and I think we're ready to vote. Thank you.
Any other comments from any of the counselors? Any other questions? Before we vote, I'd just like to remind the council that when we had that $4 million that came in unexpectedly and we put it into stabilization, there was another proposal out there for science labs, for the pool, and a couple other things. Under what the superintendent has told us tonight, we're no longer going to have to take money out of stabilization for the pool or for tearing down the 2 houses. He's going to be able to take care of that with this year's budget as well as next year's. So I think if you look at that, if it is 800,000, which I almost had a heart attack when I saw that price as well, and the $200 to $400 to tear down those houses because both houses are full of asbestos. We just don't know how much. That's $1.3 million that he's saving the city out of stabilization. So just like to make those points, and we'll go to a roll call. This is for approval of the budget as presented.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Beltrandy,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Figgy,
Yes.
Flaherty,
No.
Harris,
Yes.
Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Mello,
Yes.
Morganelli,
No.
Oniski.
Yes.
Motion. Thank you very much. Moving on, I see that our auditor has figured out the technology and she's with us down there. Robin, would you give us a brief overview of your budget, please?
Hi, I was here before. I could hear you, but I couldn't see you and you couldn't hear me. So I don't know. Peter Cole's helped me, so it's okay. A few things have gone up in our budget. One of them is our computer system for assessing, the vision system. is given back to us. It was Lenore was paying all of that, but it's coming out of her budget and going into my budget. And that's $18,000. And there's also a car that we were okayed to get, and that's 6,000 something. So those are the major changes.
And I saw through an email that we had a reduction to your budget to transfer to the building department. Can you tell us about that, please?
I don't know anything about that.
And they have misspoke then. Oh. Do we have any?
Vicki, can you tell us?
Hi there.
Hi.
Permission to speak.
Commissioner?
So when you originally gave us the budget, you had listed on here, it said assistant assessor, and my staff and myself, per the PSA, went in and increased that line item for one of the assistants. But then when I spoke to Ashley about it, she came to me and said that that number was incorrect and that those two positions are now different. And so we lowered the budget for one of the assistants to what it really should have been and moved that to the building department to help them out with their part-time building inspector. Instead of asking for a supplemental budget to increase it, we just tried to move, I presented it to the mayor to move the money that way. So it was a clerical error in terms of the PSA not specifically saying who that increase was for. It just said assistant assessors. But so Ashley is going to go with the union and the Robert Bishop and correct that so that July 1st, those are all settled. So there's no just ambiguity to those PSAs.
Yeah, I didn't know it went to the building department, that's all.
Oh, that was kind of a late.
That was today, I think, or yesterday.
Yes, yes.
Questions? Counselor Bean?
Thank you, Council Pro Temp. Two things. Well, one is a comment and one is a quick question. A little concerned right there that department heads aren't notified about this stuff. You know, it's just like getting these agendas at 4 o'clock and Karen needs to post these things quickly and we don't have things in front of us. And just to reiterate, I wasn't something that I was pointing at the city clerk for posting. It was stuff coming in that late and then not notifying anybody that it's existing. Same kind of thing. Department head should be completely aware of these kind of moves. Not saying if they have any input or not, but the lack of communication has got to stop. It just has to. With that being said, Robin, what can you buy for $6,000 when it comes to a car?
That's a 1-year payment.
Okay, so it's a lease agreement.
It's a lease.
Yeah, got it. All right. I was like, I bought my kid a $6,000 car, but that's about, you know, it's about as far as it went. And I don't need any cheap comments either, but you know, it's
You know,
Yeah, and I think we're not even going to get it for 6 months or so
okay.
because
All
they're
right.
so backed up.
That makes more sense. Thank you.
what we're trying, Counselor Bean,
Yes.
what we're trying to do here is we're trying to cure a problem in the building department that was overlooked. And that's why this thing happened kind of quickly. And, you know, Counselor Figgy's aware of this. You know, there's.
Yeah, that's fair. I know things happen. I just
Well,
want to be
there's a lot-
notified when they're happening. And
Well, there's a lot
it's
of
been
moving
like that
parts.
all year. So it's just got to get better.
And,
Gotta
you know,
get
we're
better.
trying to create something here with the building department so that
Yep.
they can function. Okay, and this is part of it. So.
Fair enough. Yep.
Councilor Flaherty, thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Robin. I got some technical questions first, and then I'll ask you some other ones too. So what do you see as new growth? We have $1 million estimated in the budget. Is it going to be higher than that? It seems like we've had some stuff coming in that should make it higher.
I think it's going to be higher, but I don't have a figure yet. So I know at least $1 million. It's not going to be 2 million.
Right, but $1.2 million, $1.4 million is still reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then what about the increases in values? I know, the market is hot right now. What are you seeing for this year as far as overall property for
I
commercial
think
and
I'm
residential?
only going to have to go up 5% on residentials.
And how about commercial?
Not at all.
0. How about personal property? 0? Or I know Ashley's
gonna
been very
be-
aggressive.
That last year it was so big because of Eversource, so we're not going to see that much because we already have them up there now.
Yeah.
We did get a couple new accounts. So it's going to be around about the same.
Okay.
Personal property, maybe a little more, but
And
we
how
don't
about things?
have any final numbers yet. So
Right. How about ones coming off TIF or STAs?
Oh, that's in the new growth already, in the $1 million.
Okay, in the million. Okay. All right, good. All right, and for people who are watching, I called it personal property, but can you tell people what that is just in your terms, because there's a lot of confusion out there in the public.
If somebody owns a business and they're not incorporated and they're not a manufacturer, we can charge them for everything they have in their building. Stoves, chairs, equipment, food, everything. And they are supposed to, by law, send us a form of list every year. And then every now and then we'll go out and check to be sure that's what they're still doing. And it's, unless they're a manufacturer or incorporated, we collect everything. So they pay the commercial rate on that.
Right. So not only they pay the sales tax when they buy something, but then they pay taxes for the rest of the time they own the thing.
I know. I mean, we don't think it's fair, but it's the law.
Right. I know, and a lot of people don't understand that. They think, a lot of business owners are just raking in the money and rich, and really they are taxed for a long time. I saw you're on the severance list and that you're planning on leaving.
Yes.
Do you have a plan that you would like to share with us, or recommendations? Because I believe the city council has to start thinking about that.
About who would take my place?
Well, about the process. Any feedback that you can give us about that?
Well, I'm leaving in February of 2022, this coming February. And one of my assistants, Debbie Levere, she's going to be moving in, leaving March or April. So we're going to be down 2 positions, and she does a lot of the permits. So Ashley's still going to be here. She wants to go into my position, and I don't know of anybody around, like in the loop, that would come. I don't know.
And that's what I was getting at is, yeah, so the market for assessors is pretty tight. And how about outsourcing? Has the city been outsourced before, and what were the results?
One time we had a Patriots company, their name's Patriots, come in. I forgot who left. Somebody left, and they came in and did a quick reval, but it really didn't turn out that great. I mean, it worked because they had to, but we need somebody who knows how to do this, and I can't train anyone because that's not done. So.
Right. Well, that's what I'm getting at. It's not in the budget either. There's no
Right.
transition in the budget.
Right.
And that would probably be an appropriate thing in my mind. I see Councilor Sullivan nodding his head there. So I think he must have lived through that last one. All right, thank you. I'm looking at that list of who's in the severance list, and there's several department heads that are critical to the city and have lots of experience. And I think we're going to face some great challenges. So in your case, I want to thank you for all you've done and all your support over the years. And
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Robin? Councilor Matthews-Kane?
Thank you. Just curious about that 18,000 for the vision software. Is that a reoccurring expense, or is that a one-time expense?
It's reoccurring every year.
Okay.
Yep. And it came out of Lenora's budget, so it's really not new money. It's just shifted from hers to ours.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Seeing none, Mr. President Pro Tem, I would move approval of the budget as presented.
Second.
Seconded, approve the budget as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Madam City Clerk?
Sullivan,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Beltrandy,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Figgy,
Yes.
Flaherty,
No.
Harris,
Yes.
Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Mello,
Yes.
Morganelli,
No.
Oniski,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 10-2.
Thank you all.
Counselor Sullivan, you have a question?
No, I was just waving goodbye.
Oh, okay. I see our city treasurer has arrived, and then he disappears, but he leaves his chair, so I think he's coming back. Matt, how'd the game go?
Not good for us, but someone's got to win.
And you win some, you lose some.
Yep.
Thank you for making time for us tonight. Would you want to do the treasurer first? I think that's account 1145.
Yep. So not a lot has changed in this budget. The one change you might notice is the out-of-state travel went to 0, and then our line went up to $33,410 for training. This relates to the Munis conference. It was originally paid through the tech center. They had a program where we could send so many people a year to the Munis conference. That's changed now. So instead of, our department would have paid the travel portion of that expense. So we moved that up to the training line, just in case that's available for this upcoming fiscal year. It wouldn't cover the total cost if we have to pay the cost of the conference and the training, but we were just trying to plan for something.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
And that exact account is the purchase of services, it's not really the training line, but it's our purchase of services account.
Counselor Flaherty, I thought I saw your hand.
Yep. Thank you. Can you talk about the Social Security line and why it's going up 3%?
So when I do the budget, I don't have a total number of all the increases for payroll and new positions. So, I built in a number of a 2% related to salary increases and then a 1% related to step increases. I don't have, as the budget process keeps changing, I don't have a solid payroll number to use, exactly by person.
Thank you. And that's what I was looking for, because a lot of times in the newspaper, you'll see that the labor contracts are only for 2%. And this is a fairly common occurrence where it's actually 50% more than what's advertised in the newspaper at 3%. So I think the public needs to know that, and there should be truth in advertising when we sign these labor contracts, because the true cost of the city is 3%. And this budget overall is going up almost $6 million. And a huge part of that is because of the labor contracts that were signed a few years ago. And I think it just needs to be out there in the open when we publish these things. We have to be honest with the taxpayers about what these really cost us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions for Matt on the Treasury account?
Mr. President Pro Tem, I'd move approval of the treasurer's account budget presented.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve as presented. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Beltrandy,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Figgy,
Yes.
Flaherty,
No.
Harris,
Yes.
Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Mello,
Yes.
Morganelli,
No.
Oniski.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the collector department, and that is 1146. Matt, give us a little preview, please.
So everything here is pretty much the same except for contract increases. All the other lines are the same. It's just following what both the WPMEA contract and the ASME 35 contract increases were.
Questions from the council? Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you. I'll decide which end of this list to start at. Okay, I'll start with Lockbox. We talked last week about that. Can you tell us how that's working out and what the changes are going to be for the upcoming year?
So the lockbox fee charges on this budget line are related to the utility account billing. And I've been working with Hannah. We're hoping for, starting with the July billing, that those bills would be processed through our Lighthouse lockbox, which would result in no fees to the city. I've still budgeted some amount in case not everything transitioned as fast. But that is our plan to start with the July bills.
Okay. And then first, thank you for helping chase down a lot of the utility billing questions. You know, there's a couple people that have been looking through all the billing records and had lots and lots of questions. And I know you guys have chased them down. One of the things that they'd like to know, and it relates to the water billing, is if you know off the top of your head how many people are 30 days or more delinquent on utility bills. Like a percentage.
I don't have that. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have that with me.
Okay. Any idea how much is uncollected at the end of the budget year for utility bills? Because the subsequent years depend on prior year collections, if I remember right.
Yeah, I don't have the
Okay.
uncollected amount with me. I just have my budget papers with me tonight.
Okay. And a question about ambulance collections. Does your department handle that, or do the ambulance contractor do that?
There are payments that come through Comstar, but they do get sent to our office. I think it's Comstar.
I'm thinking about people that don't pay. So I've heard from citizens that they are getting billed or chased by a collection company because they didn't pay a portion of the ambulance fee. The ambulance, maybe charges $2,000 and their insurance pays $1,500 and they're being chased for the balance. And I thought we had a policy in the city and an ordinance that didn't allow that. I thought we were supposed to accept the insurance payment as payment in full. Do you know if that's true or not?
I'll have to look into that.
Okay. All right. And then we talked about electronic payments and auto pay. Many utility companies allow you to sign up online to pay electronically or to set up a payment plan. What are we going to be doing next year? Do you have changes in the works?
So Hannah, Tammy, the tech center, and I have all taken several different demos about different collection methods we could use related to that. And even our current Unipay system could be changed to allow for that style of interaction with the residents or the businesses, where they could get reminders of the bills, the amounts due, and set up auto payment if they wanted. People do have the option, if they wanted, to set up say a monthly payment through their bank where it sends a check to the city every month or every quarter. They could do that. Utility bills don't have to be paid exact like motor vehicle excise bills do. So, partial payments or set amounts could be set up like that if somebody chose.
Great. All right, thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Counselor. Good information. Thank you for asking. Any other questions from any other city councilor? Yes, Councilor Burns. I think you're muted, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see that. Thank you. Again,
Thanks,
thank
Bob.
you, Matt, for all you're doing there. Just quick question. I know you don't have figures in front of you of collections, just like a snapshot. How are the collections from this year as far as business and residential? You don't have to give me an exact figure, just.
So I did look at that the other day. We're up collection wise about 1.8 million through I think it was June 7th. We were up about 1.8 million over last year.
In both in business and
Combined, that would be
combined.
a 20 through the 30 for our collection code. So that'd be the real estate tax title, vehicle excise.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Yep, you're welcome.
Any additional questions from any of the councilors?
Seeing none, Mr. President Pro Tem, I would move approval of the collector's budget as presented.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the budget as presented. Any final discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Beltrandy,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Figgy,
Yes.
Flaherty,
No.
Harris,
Yes.
Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Mello,
Yes.
Morganelli,
No.
Oniski.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Just before we entertain a motion to adjourn, just like to remind everyone that our next committee of the whole meeting will be Monday, June 14th at 6 p.m. That too will be via Zoom. And again, it starts at 6. Any other comments from anyone?
Oh, I'll help out Councilor Harris and say motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to adjourn. Roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Beltrandy,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Figgy,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Mello,
Yes.
Morganelli,
Yes.
Oniski.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening and a better weekend.
Thanks, everybody.